Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. I am your host, Neeki. I am the baddest bitch in the building, not to be confused with you, who is also the baddest bitch in the building, and not to be confused with Talia, who is a princess.
Hi, my name is Talia. I go by Princess Talia on both my Instagram and my YouTube. And what I generally try to focus on is building and protecting your power. And I know that that looks vastly different depending on the girly you are. I know for myself, I'm a neurodivergent girly. So sometimes some of the basic go-to methods to get out of victim mentality and become the best version of yourself can seem a little redundant, and that's why I wanted to start making the content that I do. But generally, it's just always awesome to be you, and being you is all you need to do.
I love that, and I like that it rhymes too,
Yes,
to stick with the girlies.
exactly.
So, we have an interesting episode today because we have a very specific topic we want to talk about, which is why women need to get off of dating apps. So, by the end of this episode, our goal is that if you have a dating app on your phone, you're going to delete it. Yeah.
Delete it.
Talia, I need to ask you this.
Yes.
Have you ever used an app? And I'm going to answer this question for myself too, but have you used an app?
Absolutely. I think confidently I would not be able to sit here and tell anyone to get off these apps with good reason without me having gone into the wild myself and explored the absolute wilderness and confusion it is to be on a dating app. So definitely, and I'm very happy that that's not in my reality anymore.
Yeah, I've got into the wild too and saw some savage beasts.
People
So
you find in
we've
the
both
wild
been
are
there.
usually wild.
It's tough out there, and I don't know how you girls do it if you're still on those apps. I live in Toronto, which is like a pretty big city, and it is just like horrendous. My One of me and my friends like activities when we get together, like I have a friend group of like four girls, is we'll airplay my friend's Hinge on the TV and just go through people's profiles, and it's disturbing, but it's really
Sorry.
entertaining. So if you're that one friend, my friend who we airplay your Hinge, you're listening to this, you don't delete the app because we still need our
Because
entertainment. But
you
everybody
need
else,
entertainment, and we need to audit people so we can find out absolutely what the red flags are. That's the only reason you can't delete the data. Like
yeah,
have
just
to run through so that so you can be reminded of all of the bad stuff that's out there. That's a reality check.
it's like a PSA
Hmm.
basically. So I want to play a little game before we actually get into the conversation.
Okay.
And I want you to rate these methods of meeting someone from bad to worse.
Okay, I'm
So,
ready.
okay. They're all like pretty bad. So, getting approached on the street, meeting someone on a dating app, meeting someone at the club, and sliding into someone's DMs. So, from bad to worse.
Ooh, and I have to rate them like bad to worse only, or not, or it's like on a scale from 1 to 4 or whatever.
Like, put them in order of like which one is like the least terrible and which one is the most
I
terrible.
think honestly, this one might be an unpopular opinion, but I think that the meeting someone, like find someone coming up to you in public, can be really, really bad. I will say that the club might possibly be the worst one, dating apps being the third worst, or like the so let's say the club is the worst one, the dating apps is the second worst one. Someone meeting you in public is probably the um the like the almost the best one, and then I think the DMs one is actually the best one, because when you're in someone's DMs you can actually kind of vet them before you actually end up engaging with them, and you can also choose not to engage with them at all, so it's actually the ball's in your court way more, and you can control the interaction way more, which I think for the girlies that are trying to protect their energy and stay soft, stay feminine, and also not get too reactive or overcompensate or get drawn into some man game. I think that's the best version. And on social media, you're usually pretty open. I hope you guys are, girls are, about the type of life you like living. So if you're the type of girl who's posting that you're traveling, you have your nice bags, you have this type of lifestyle, then people will only approach you if that's what they can match. And if they can't match that, then why are they in your DMs? But I do feel kind of like if you meet someone on the street, that's happened to me so many times. People come up to me in the street. If you meet them in the wild, there's a 99% possibility that they are wild. It's like catching a Pokemon. You don't know if it's a good Pokemon if you catch it in the middle of nowhere. Like it's not going to be good for you. And that doesn't mean that you can't meet people out there, especially when we're talking about dating apps, that can't be good, but you have to usually go to curated environments where you know that that person is there for a specific purpose. But someone walking in the street, they could literally be coming from something that you do not want to be a part of, and you don't know because you're just seeing them in the street.
That's an interesting answer because I feel like when I was putting this together, I'm like, okay, maybe she's gonna say that meeting somebody in real life is not as bad as online. But I've been approached on the street. This one time I was crossing the street and a guy turned around and ran after me while I was crossing the street. And it like no one who's approached me on the street, like in the wild, has been that bad, but you never know. It's just because you're just seeing that person, you just see how they're dressed, how they're carrying themselves, but like that's all you get to know. So you could be a serial killer. Like I don't freaking know,
They
but
could
it's
be trying
just
to scam you. They could be a con artist. And they could be thinking that because you're looking really, really nice and pretty, that means that you're like stupid enough to be able to take their little offer of, oh, he's so nice. He's like, oh, you're so pretty. That's where it's a good idea to just say, I don't have any money for you. Because then they'll walk,
sorry. No spare change, sorry.
have any spare change, sir.
Or you pretend not to speak English. I've done that too, but
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Put on like an accent, but then it could backfire if they actually start being like, "Oh, you're so interesting."
or they speak the act like the language that you're pretending that
Yeah,
you only
so
speak.
that one
So
could be
yeah.
that one could be bad.
Okay, we'll stick to the spare change one. We'll see how it goes.
I'm sorry, sir. I don't have any money.
Oh
Walking
my
around with a
God.
Louis Vuitton purse. I don't have any money.
Literally walking around like you're married to a millionaire. I don't have any spare change for you, but I don't. Do you take tap?
It's like, but some of them do.
Stop.
And if you've
Stop.
ever been to New York, like every time you're in Washington Square Park or anywhere where there's performers, usually they take Venmo or they take like you can tap your card. I remember I was
That's
in London once
insane.
and there was like a street performer and it's like, "Oh, I don't have a spare couple quid." And they're like, "Oh yeah, but you can tap."
I don't know if that's like smart or if that's just
That's a little
audacity that
terrifying to me.
I don't know. Yeah. This reminds me of like tipping culture now because I live I think in Canada and the US. I don't know if it's like that in Europe where you live, but you get asked for a tip everywhere, like literally everywhere you go now. Like at a fast food restaurant, you'll get asked if you want a tip. It's crazy.
That's actually interesting because I do feel like because of the whole well, we can get into that later, and I know you're gonna edit the episode, so you can edit that out or whatever. But you know what I think is really interesting? It's how as we've seen a rise in that tipping culture, we also see a rise in men that expect a lot more from you without them even giving you a good bargain. It's like you go to a fast food restaurant, you order a $5 burger, and they expect a $2 tip. That is how a lot of men operate today. They're like,
Mm,
"I'll give you a $5 burger or, like, take you out for, like, a nice little meal, and then I want 100% tip."
that's a really good analogy. I feel like I don't know. And I have a question about this later that I want to ask you, kind of
Mhm.
on this note, kind of
Exactly.
different. I don't know. I get this sense now that like men are tired with the role that they have, which is to be a provider, which is, in my opinion, and I think in a scientific opinion, kind of a natural role that they assume, and they just want to opt out of it. And instead of like stepping up to the role, they're like, no, I don't want to do this.
I just don't think they're raised to take on that role. And because I think a lot of people are also confusing masculinity and providing with toxicity. So they think that in order for them to be a provider, they can't be someone who is able to bond with their family. And I think that's, if you push that narrative the same way that pushing the narrative that if you want to be a mom, that means you're not going to be able to have a career. I think it's like a very much an either or mentality instead of a and mentality. And I think that's why a lot of men don't want to be providers, because they feel that in order for them to be a provider, they're gonna like everything bit of their existence is gonna be challenged. So they'd rather just not have that on their shoulders. But I also do think, and I'm not talking the men's case here because I'm talking the girlies case always. Um, I think a lot of the time it's also because a lot of women today are too focused on chasing validation instead of actually giving themselves validation. And then if you're a provider man, you're not going to be willing to give a woman providing validation, like provider, because it's going to be like she's been completely depleted. When it comes to men, it's very important to understand that men are acting out of self-interest. They don't act out of, if you're a charity case, but in today's world, a lot of women are a charity case. They think that in order for a man to take care of them, they need to make themselves as meager and small, as helpless as possible. And then these men see them as charity cases, and that's why they don't want to provide for them, because they don't feel like it's their being, reciprocated with the feminine energy that a woman should be able to bring. And that's why they also don't necessarily believe in feminine energy. But that's a completely different topic.
You can't ask a man to give you something that you should be giving yourself, which is validation, self worth, self love. Like, as a woman, it's your responsibility to do that before you go out into the wild or into a curated environment and find a person to be your partner. But I also think part of it is the system too, because we live in a system, we live in like a society, and I know there's different cultures around the world, but I think a lot of them have the same underlying theme, which is to make women be small. Like, literally the way you sit, you're making yourself smaller, you're taking
Oh
up less
yeah.
space. And I think a lot of the stuff that both of us talk about is about like, how do you expand, like with your energy, with the way you carry yourself, because we have to undo a lot of that crap. But that is, I love the tangents we've gone on, and I feel like it's going to come back later in the episode. On a totally unrelated note, I wanted to talk about capitalism and how dating has fallen victim to capitalism. I think we see this a lot with a lot of Netflix shows. The majority of the big Netflix shows now are reality dating shows. And when I was doing some digging, preparing for this episode, I found that Match Group is the parent company of Tinder, Hinge, OkCupid, Match.com, and Plenty of Fish. So they've acquired Tinder and Hinge, which I think are the bigger dating apps, but like big dating is behind all of this.
Big
And
dating, big corporation dating.
literally, because if it's successful, they lose two customers.
But that's why it's so important to understand as a woman why it's so dangerous for you to put yourself onto dating apps, because you are literally commodifying yourself. And in a society that is capitalistic already, I think it's one thing that I truly believe is that we cannot change the system. It is not our responsibility to change the system. Like, we can't just go out and say everything needs to change. That's not going to change anything. What we need to do, as you also talk about, is we got to learn how the system works and then play it in a way that makes us have the upper hand. And for a girly, that is not being on a dating app. Because when you put yourself on a dating app, you are literally saying that you are an available commodity. And you have to think about yourself as a designer bag. Are you a bag from the thrift store that costs $5 that everyone can have access to, but most people actually don't even want to buy because it's literally a dirty bag from the thrift store? Are you a Coach bag? So, a little bit more expensive, but, still affordable. Are you a Louis Vuitton bag? Exclusive, yet if you make a little money, you can buy it. Or are you a Birkin? You need to get on a wait list and you need to keep on, showing up to the store in order for you to ever be considered for a Birkin bag. And when you put yourself on a dating app, I will argue the case that you're almost the I don't want to say that women are bags, but it's a really, really good example of exclusivity where if you are a Birkenback, You're not advertising. Hermes doesn't advertise. You never see a big brand advertise like that. That's why when you put yourself on a dating app, you are advertising yourself. What does that mean? It means that you say that you're a commodity essentially. And it's really, really sad for a lot of girlies to hear. I think a lot of girlies are gonna be mad because it's like, I'm not a commodity. I'm not something that can be bought just because I put myself on a dating app. But essentially, that's what you're saying when you're signing up. Because you're saying, well, I like you're making an ad for yourself. Literally on dating apps, you can buy membership, which will get your profile pushed to more people. That is the exact same way that marketing and using, online marketing works. You buy ad slots on Google. Like that's how it works.
It's like you're putting yourself on a page in a catalog that then men can flip through, and they can literally like fold down the page if they like you, or they can just like flip the page over and go to the next person. Like you
They
make
can
it
bid on you.
easy. They can be, oh my God.
They can bid on you because they can send you a little message on, one of the apps. They can send you a little message saying, "Hey, how are you doing? Hey, this and this and that." That's bait. That's a bid. And then you reply to it. And whether you like it or not, it's like a guy can literally say the most unhinged thing, which would never fly if you're buying something off like a marketplace app or like a someone who's selling something. You'd never fly if someone was rude in your like selling something online. But when they go on a dating app, people feel much more like inclined to saying you're such a big a-hole.
I think it dehumanizes you. I don't know why, but this kind of reminds me of driving in traffic, because when you're in a car, you see everybody else around you as just different cars. Like you don't see the car as like a person operating that car. There's a person behind that wheel. It's just another car. And I feel like in the same way that that's dehumanizing, it's also dehumanizing to be on an app, because they don't see you as a person. They just see you as something they can bid on, or like a profile.
Exactly. And one thing that I do want to add to that is that a lot of girlies will probably say, well, I just want love. What about love? Like, I don't want to be a part of this capitalistic dating system. So I'm just going to go for love. Well, sweetie pie, I'm sorry to say this, but this is how it works. And you might say that you want to exit it, and you can go and try to exit it, but eventually you will end up in the cycle again because you will realize that the men have clocked that this is how it works. But if you tell yourself that you're going to exit it, that's not going to mean that you exit it. It's just going to mean that you let yourself become delusional and you let yourself be played. You can either play or you can get played. So if you enter into dating, that's what I always say. If you choose to date, women do not have to date. In today's day and age, you can get a job, you can get an education, you can become a woman who has everything that you want by yourself, which means that when you do date, it is entering into a game. You have to be aware of that, which means that you have to learn some rules in order for you to be able to survive the game. Because if you do not learn some rules, you're going to be the one who gets played. If you don't want to get played, don't date. That's just how it is. If you don't want to get played, don't date. But this is not what this episode is about. This episode is about why you shouldn't be using dating apps. So that's why you have to understand that no matter if you want to be the car in traffic, as you said, or if you want to be a bag, we're not saying that you are either of them, but you have to kind of understand that it's actually easier to put value on yourself if you kind of see yourself as something that is more valuable. We have an easier time valuing a piece of leather or a car than we have valuing ourselves. So sometimes it's actually better to use an analogy of like, okay, well, am I a Coach bag or am I a Hermes bag? Like, what type of bag am I? And how would I act if I was that type of bag? Because that makes you have an easier time making sure that you don't step down your boundaries.
I like how I like putting things in analogies, because we can like step out of the current situation and then look at it from a different lens, and then realize when we're acting not in our best interest. So I love the
Exactly.
analogy of the like being a Birkin bag versus a Coach bag. And I'm glad that you mentioned dating as a game, because I think that dating apps have also turned into a game. Like they're very much gamified now, because dating apps are technically social media apps. They have an algorithm. Their goal is to keep you on that app as long as possible and to keep you coming back to that app. So they've turned dating and they've turned looking for a partner as a game. You either swipe left, you swipe right. Like that concept of swiping left or right on someone like literally did not exist until I think it was Tinder that came out with that idea. So it's literally a game and it's just like small bursts of dopamine
It
for you.
is.
It's like the slot machine of dating. I saw somebody call it that and I'm like, this is so true. It's literally a slot machine for dating where you think, okay, one more time, one more time, one more time.
And it's very important to understand that when it's that easy to kind of like sort someone into a yes or a no category, is also much easier for, first and foremost, the man to feel like he has already conquered. When you match with a man, the chasing stops. Now he feels like he's done what he needs to do. Like he doesn't even feel like he needs to take you on a date. He feels like, oh, because you matched, that's you saying yes. Now I approve you. So when you start go on a dating app as a girl, that's when you enter into the dating app and you start swiping men, you're also essentially kind of like telling yourself psychologically that if you're swiping yes to a man and suddenly he says something rude to you, your psyche has already kind of said, well, you pre-approved this man, so you got to go through with it. Especially if you're a overcompensator girly, if you're someone who's always people pleasing, if you're someone like me who's a neurodivergent who has sometimes a little bit of a hard time reading social cues, you might feel like you need to owe it to someone to be nice, even though they're not very nice towards you, just because you swipe yes to them. And that is a very, very big responsibility to take that you do not need to take. And it also makes you very uneasy because then you feel like you have an obligation to make everyone happy. And the only person you should be making happy is yourself, but you can't make yourself happy if you're literally entering into a game.
I wonder if an app like Bumble, where women have to make the first move, like they have to message first, otherwise the match expires. Do you think that's better or worse, or does it make a difference?
I think no matter what type of app you sign up for, you are going to be entering into playing a game. And when you have an app where it says that you have to be the first mover, you're essentially saying that instead of you passing a ball to each other, you're literally shooting two balls. And so it's kind of like putting men more in their feminine energy because now they're expected to being chased more. So I would say that that might be a breeding ground for even more feminine men. So it's not, I think dating apps in general are just dangerous because it does put you in a position of thinking you have to pass the ball. And that's not very feminine, that's not very receiving, that's very chasing. It's very like, okay, well, I'm putting myself out there. What are you doing for me? It's like I'm going to fight you and then after we fight we kiss or whatever. It's like it doesn't really make sense to me. It seems a little redundant and it doesn't really seem like you can find someone necessarily who will be straight up without you having to go through, ironically enough, as I say, you're playing a ball game, you might have to run through a couple hoops in order for you to protect yourself. But that's, I think, for dating app, I think apart from it making men like making it easier to get acquire women for men, I think it also makes it easier for women to deny responsibility for their own emotions and validate themselves, which is something that I think a lot of girlies don't want to hear because we also have a tendency to always want to blame it on everyone in the world, and that, oh well, men, my ex boyfriend who's a narcissist did this, and my mom made me feel like that, and my dad made me feel like that, and my ex best friend did this. So when we have a dating app on our phone, it's actually easier to start talking about men in a negative sense because you're constantly being fed that men are acting like this weird way, or as you said with your friend where you put it up on the screen and you're looking at swiping at men. It's like you have a negative projection of men in your like frontal lobe or in your face all the time, so that's what you're going to be looking for more, that's what you're going to be normalizing, and then you don't understand why you keep running into negativity and like bad men, but that's the only thing you're centering because that's the only thing that you can focus on. You're actually amplifying it. It's kind of like making men your For You page. So if you want to have a good relationship with a man, or if you want to have a healthy relationship with your man, a man, you have to have a healthy relationship with yourself first, and that doesn't happen on a app. It happens on you literally removing yourself from that type of validation. You starve that validation that you are trying to seek. so that you cannot get that emotional validation burst from being able to say to your girlfriends, "Oh, this really toxic man matched with me," or "Oh, look at what this guy said." Because that's also something that's a cushion that you get from dating apps. It's a cushion that a lot of women get from dating apps, that they can say that men are terrible, because that's something that men do on dating apps. So you can keep on playing that game if you keep on using dating apps. But it will not make you happy, and it will not make you that feminine woman who's taken care of. Maybe you want to provide her man. It's going to make you the type of woman who is resentful, who hates men. And when you hate men, you're only going to attract worse men. And it's also going to take away from all of the energy you could be putting into making yourself more securely attached instead of anxiously attached. Um, and you're going to have to do that work at any time. So it's better for you to run into that wall now, take away the dating apps, and start facing that reality instead of having the cushion of dating. And then a lot of girls might say, well, I want to be with a man, like I want company too, and I want this and this and that. Like I can't meet anyone else unless I'm on a dating app. If that's your basis for your whole reality, like listen to yourself. It's a cushion for you not doing your own inner work. And it's sad to hear, but if you remove that cushion, you're going to have to get hard. Like you're going to have to um get your mentality going much quicker. But if you have that cushion to fall back on, like someone saying, "Oh yeah, girl, men are terrible," and you going back and forth with your girlfriends, then you're never going to escape that cycle, and that's when you're not going to attract a healthy man for you. So that's what dating apps also do for you. That was very deep, very philosophical.
No, that was great. So it stunts your growth. It stunts your self-growth, and
It does.
it reinforces like negative perceptions, negative worldviews that you might have about men. Because I think anybody who enables you to say men are terrible, I hate men, is somebody who is also stuck in that negative cycle. Because if you hate somebody, you probably hate yourself
Yeah.
first, in my opinion. I kind of want to look at it from the other way too, because we know that it's easier for women to get matches. We know it's easier for women to be able to like sort through their matches and reject men. And in the last few years, we've also seen a lot of misogyny among men, I think among young men, like red pill content, for example. So do you think there's some kind of relation between this increasing rejection and power that women have over rejecting men and the rise of misogyny?
I think it's something that's always been there. Because when you look back when it was kings and queens and earls and whatever, the woman, like the princess of the king, the king's daughter, the princess, she would have to pick usually between suitors, or her father would pick the best suitor with the most money. The man with the most money and the most prosperity would get her, even if they didn't really like each other. But it would always be the situation that would set his family or her up for better. It would never be the type of situation that would set her up for like less money. And back in the Middle Ages or whatever, you probably needed some money to be able to survive. It makes a lot of sense, but in today's world, we kind of want to feed this mentality that it's not for survival. Now we all live happy. That means that we should be able to pick out of love. We should be able to pick men out of love, and we should all love each other. And men will happily parade that they're looking for a serious relationship while they're not really, because they know that women are going to fall into that category. And when women start sniffing up those patterns, which they will, because women are not stupid, women are smart, they stop entering into that, and then they men get mad because now it's not as easy to reel in the fish. For many years we've been sold as women this idea that men and women are equal. We've been sold an idea that men and women are the same, and it's something that, well, for a little while it felt empowering, I guess, to a lot of women, that, well, I can go to work and he can go to work and I can choose to have my life, and I don't need to be like, I can have my own money, I can do my own thing, I can be a man. But then I think as we've evolved women, we've also seen how saying that we are equal actually takes a lot away from our power, and it actually diminishes our femininity in a lot of ways, because women and men are not the same. That doesn't mean that we cannot both have feminine and masculine tendencies. It does not mean that you cannot choose to do whatever you want to do. It just means that there are differences. And I think that we've been taught for many, many years that we are all equal. And now women are sniffing out that that's not true, because the generation, I know for a fact that that was my mom's generation that was fed this whole we're equal. A lot of those mothers are burned out because they are both the ones taking care of the children. They're also having a job or maybe two jobs. They're cooking, they're cleaning, they're making sure that their husband or their man is happy. And the man is probably doing less than any of those. Maybe he doesn't even have a job, because now he feels like men and women are equal, which means that he can do less and she has to do everything. So, one thing that I personally think is that in today's world, women are being pushed more to be able to prove that they are good enough women, that in order for them to be good enough women, they need to take on like this role. And that's where the incels come in and say, well, a woman has to do all of this and all of that in order for her to be a good enough woman, because the value of a woman is inherent. That's how the value of a woman is. The value of a woman is inherent. She has value as she is. She's literally creator. She can birth a human being. She can create life. But the red pill content wants to make it seem like women have to acquire value. And the only way they acquire value is in the presence of other people. But let me ask this question. Would women ever be suppressed if they weren't powerful? Why do you ever suppress something that isn't powerful? You only suppress something that's powerful. And that's because women are intrinsically powerful as they are. So that's that's why they want to make us believe that, oh, women need to do this and women need to do that. It's always that we kind of like catch on the bait and we're like, oh, I know, I'm sorry. I'll do better. I'll be a good woman. I'll be a good girl. I'll be moral. They always want us to be moral.
But who made that moral compass?
Oh
Men
yeah,
trying to
men.
control women. Yeah. I say this all the time too. Like, just the fact that we live in a patriarchy just reinforces the fact that if we didn't have so much power just by existing, like, this system wouldn't even exist. There's a certain level of threatened that you have to feel to go and create a system that subjugates an entire group of people because you feel so threatened by their existence. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why we have to be very good at detaching. That's why we have to get very good at removing any noise that could possibly make us more susceptible to being manipulated. And the way that women are most easily manipulated is if they are not sure about what they want, because the most easily deceived women are the ones that are most confused. So, a lot of the ways that we women today get manipulated, especially through dating apps or social media or through like this red pill men, um, it's because they make us confused. They make us question ourselves if our value is inherent or not, as I said before. And that's when we start being like, oh, well, maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to do that. Maybe I need to hop and jump and skip and sing and make noises, because that's the way that I'm going to be able to get a little bit of validation. And they love that. That's exactly what the men want you to do, because that means that you do not have energy to put energy into yourself. You only take whatever energy you have and you put it into them. And that's when you go into self love debt. And that's when you're going to be craving even more validation. And that's when you're going to be going on the dating apps and then you're going to be faced with the bad men. And then that's when you're going to develop a victim complex because you think all the men are terrible. And then you're going to reinforce this horrible reality for yourself that's only going to continue until you wake up and you decide to cut out that cushion. So that's essentially, if you are not sure about what you want, you need to get very sure about what you want. And you need to be very unapologetic about what you want. And that's what a lot of women, I think, they don't want, so that they keep their options open because they're afraid that they're not going to be loved unless they keep their options extremely open.
I think there's a lot of gaps that, like, people who want to manipulate you can slip through these gaps. One of them is not knowing what you want, because most people can pick up really quickly if you don't know what you want and they see that as a gap to slide in. I think another one is being emotionally attached because you're guided by fear of losing whatever it is you're attached to.
Mhm.
That's another gap where people can slide in and manipulate you. So I feel like it's like it all goes back to self validation and self love. If your relationship with yourself is not airtight, then nothing else is going to work for you.
When you think about it, when the only reason that men started getting angry at women is when women like us started saying, well, you know what, you shouldn't be out there just selling yourself for love. I mean, I, but that's probably bad to say, it's selling yourself, but you shouldn't be out here saying that you will only settle for love. When women like us started saying you shouldn't be out here settling just for love, that's when the men started getting angry. But when women were just jumping around, acting like it was all flowers and unicorns, burning themselves out like crazy because they were still believing in this illusion, then the men were happy, weren't they? So when women start realize, like when women start waking up, then when women start taking the on the red pill women movement, then I think that's when men start getting angry because then they realize that the game is up. We clocked it. And if they try to say anything against that, like verbally, it's going to be clocked as well that the whole time they were trying to play us. And that's why these men get so angry when us women, we stand up for ourselves and say, I'm not going to settle for less. Because if they start reacting, that means that the whole time they were playing a game, and they can't have that be revealed, because that means that that moral code that they're trying to reinforce all the time, that broke men deserve love, and what about this man and that man, and oh, that's so sad for me, they can't keep that up, because if they respond, that means that we won. um so they don't like that. They see it as a competition, and I think that's also very bad to see it as. I think that's one thing we have to um stop thinking it's competition. Just because you're playing a game doesn't mean it's a competition. You're playing for you. You're not playing against men. You're playing on your own court. And if they want to come and play on your court, they have to bring their ball. It's not you're playing on a big court, all of you. You play on your own court, and if people want to come play, they got to bring their ball. That
Another
means
analogy that I like. That means money.
that means money.
Speaking of money, actually, how do you feel about these exclusive dating apps like Raya?
Well, as I said before, I don't think I can condone any dating apps at all. But I think, again, any type of dating app, no matter what, it's a value proposition. I have a background in marketing, so I do know a little bit about this. It's just it's the same thing, just packaged in a way that makes people think that when they're on this app, they're better than everyone else. And that makes it so that the men that are actually on these more exclusive dating apps, they're not necessarily high value men. They're just men that think that they're all that. And that's actually a much more dangerous man than actually just being on a regular dating app, because this man is going to think he's all that. And a man who thinks he's all that, he's not going to think you're all that. He's going to want to like show himself off, like, look at me. So I think the more exclusive ones just cater to some, it usually they, I mean, they cater to men. I think we've pat that down. Dating apps cater to men first and foremost. And that means that the more exclusive ones generally cater to the type of men that want to show off. You can use that to your advantage too if you're the type of girly who likes that type of lifestyle, if you want to be tricked on, but you got to have a very, very strong mentality for you to be able to do that. So if you are an overcompensator, if you are a people pleaser, I think that's one thing that I think I like to talk about a little bit on my social medias, is that if you have not yet healed your relationship with yourself, why are you asking a man for a G-Wagon? Why are you expecting him to show up with 100 red roses? Why are you expecting him to buy you this and this and that? If you cannot even make yourself happy, you cannot expect a man to trick on you. And you also have to go for a man that is a provider more than he's just a trick. Because a trick can buy you a nice vacation, but he can go shoot the next day. And that's not going to make you, if you're not emotionally happy with yourself and you're like, okay, you know what, I'm happy with the vacation, I don't need to see him again, then you're not gonna be happy in that type of situation, and it might break you down even more. It might make you feel even more like a victim. Like, where are all the good men? They're not on the dating apps, honey.
So where are the good men? I think we've established that these apps, no matter if they are cater to women messaging first or cater to exclusivity, they're no good. What is the alternative? Where should we go if we're trying to find someone?
I think first and foremost, this is gonna be an unpopular answer as well. The girlies are gonna hate me for that. But you have to first and foremost work on yourself. So I think before you start trying to go out there, you have to start going inside. And that means you gotta be able to do a little home DJing, if you know what I mean. Um, a little at-home DJing for the girlies. You need to be able to make yourself happy in every way possible. And if you are someone who's been dating on and off, I think a lot of girlies that have been dating on and off since they were like teenagers, they're usually the ones who end up falling victim to a lot of the behavior on dating apps because they're craving that validation. You have to maybe take a year off of dating. Take a year off of dating. It sounds really, really daunting, but you know what? If you do end up meeting someone in the meantime, that is better. And that doesn't mean that you're closing yourself up for an experience to open itself to you. It just means that you are closing yourself off so you can focus on channeling your energy into yourself. And that's why when I say that where to find the good men at is actually where you find yourself. So if you're someone who's really into art, start going to the art museum. If you're someone who's really into jazz, go to a jazz bar. And it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to find your future husband the first time you go there. I think a lot of girlies think that they need to go to a high-end hotel bar and then they just need to sit there and look pretty. Like, no, the men can tell that you're there for that reason. If you're sitting in a really, really busy business area and like you're just some pretty girl in a pretty dress sitting there on your own on your phone, they know why you're there. It's like it's clear. It's clear as day. So in that case, you need to put yourself in good environments. If you're someone who likes to go shopping, maybe you even just like going window shopping, you do not need to put a lot of money into doing these things. Go to a nice luxury mall. Spend some time go around listening to podcasts. Have one AirPod in, have another one out so that you actually seem receptive. And then maybe you run into someone who could be a good friend, even. Maybe it's a girlfriend you will meet. Maybe you meet a good man. Whatever it is, you just need to be putting yourself out there, but in your own interest, because you a man will find you if you start finding yourself. So go do the things that you like to doing. And that is not sitting at home in your bed looking on your computer. You could do better.
Or sitting in a hotel bar. I feel like that is the real life equivalent of a dating app.
It
And I
is.
think there's a lot of content around like, oh, just look pretty and go somewhere like during a happy hour and the men will find you. But I feel like that's again, you're putting yourself out like a catalog, waiting for somebody
Yeah,
to
it's like,
approach you. So
hey everyone, I'm out here. It's like, yeah, we see you.
now what? Now you're using your looks and your attractiveness as your currency again in the same way that you would on a dating app.
And there's nothing wrong with using your pretty privilege to get yourself a better life, but you gotta look like you're busy, because if you're just looking like an empty slot waiting to be entertained, then they can literally manipulate you into doing whatever they want. You gotta be busy. Booked and busy. Booked and busy is the best. Because that way you signal to the world that whatever may come into my life is better. And like if you're at the museum or you're at a jazz bar or you're out doing something that you love, you're actually out there doing something for you. And if you meet someone or not, it doesn't matter. You have to go out with the intention of making yourself happy, not making someone else happy or finding someone. Because if you're looking to find something, you will not find it. Have you ever noticed how if you lose something around your house, the moment it turns up is when you stop looking for it?
My mindset is anything that's meant for you, it will happen and you don't have to put that much effort into chasing it. Like if it's meant to be, it will be. If it's not meant to be, the universe is literally going to put every obstacle in your way for it to not happen. So,
Yeah, and you also just got to get clear. I think that's one thing that I think a lot of the girlies, they want to date just because they want to figure out what it's like. If you're young, if you're very, very young, like early 20s, even before your 20s, just date the broke guy, date the funny guy, date the guy who doesn't have anything but a guitar, just to see how that actually feels and how that leaves you. It's going to be hard, but it's a good lesson to learn. But if you're someone who is, you want a serious relationship, you need to have a serious relationship with yourself first.
Everything is reflected back to you.
Yeah, it's all a mirror of who you are. Because remember this, girlies, you only date at your own confidence level. So if you meet a man and he is good, and you know what, he might be a good provider, he might be really, really, he might technically be perfect for you. And I'm not saying that no guy needs to be perfect, because perfect doesn't exist. You have to understand that no matter how good this guy might be, there is still going to be a level of him that is also at your confidence level, because a guy, usually maybe they date a little bit above their own confidence level, but there will be something that is reflecting that he's going for you. So that's also very important to understand, that if you haven't worked on yourself, you are going to be attracting a man who is also sending out the signals that you are, in some degree, or maybe in a different part of his life, which is why we have to do a little bit of self work so we can expect more.
I hope the girlies are taking notes, because this is all, you're spitting so much facts right now. So I feel like we've reached the end of our conversation. I mean, not really. I feel like we can talk about this for hours. But in the interest of time, I always like to close my episodes by asking my guest, what is your patriarchy hack? So I want to leave it open to you.
I think my patriarchy hack, as much as I've said a lot of facts, as you said, throughout the whole conversation, I think my patriarchy hack is sometimes it's better to be smart by playing dumb. Not saying you necessarily have to be stupid. There's a big difference between playing dumb and being stupid, but sometimes you need to retract your energy and not let everyone know that you got good cards. Because if you want to move up, sometimes you got to let people think that they're right, in order for you to get the peace that you need, in order for you to be able to work on yourself. If you're constantly trying to engage with people that are not where you want to be in life, then you're not going to move from there. And that's where sometimes it's better as a girl to lean a little bit more on you being a little pretty, a little ditzy, and then you can just let people pass you by because they don't think you're intimidating. And that's exactly a good way to kind of like handle a dating situation, for example. I'm not saying you have to be dumb and be like, I don't know what blue means. I don't know what. No, it's just more like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, wow. Tell me more about that. And not reveal all of your cards in the beginning. Seem like, be light. And then if people want to know more, they have to invest more. And if they can facilitate better for you, that's what I always say to neurodivergent girls, because neurodivergent girls usually want to kind of like prove that they're smart. They don't like people telling them that they can't be smart. But to me, that's the best life hack I've ever learned, is that sometimes it's better just to come off a little bit as if you don't know everything, because then it's easier to make it out the situation. Because if you are a little too open about you being extremely smart, people are going to penalize you for being both beautiful and smart. And that's when it's the smart thing to do, is to play dumb so that you can make it further.
I love that. That's literally one of my girly laws of power. Number 8, know when to act dumb to get what you want. And a lot of the time people will be like, what the hell are you talking about? So Talia, this has been great. I feel like you've given so much knowledge to the girlies, and I had so much fun talking to you. So do you want to let the girls know where they can find you?
You can find me on my YouTube. My name is Princess Talia. It's not with S's, it's with C's. I don't know.
Z? Yeah.
Yeah. So Princess Talia with C's instead of S's. And I'm the same on my Instagram. Yeah.
Amazing. Everybody go check out her stuff. If you thought she was giving us knowledge here, you are in for a treat. So, Talia, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.